The Briefcase in the Pines. July 20th, 1944. Wolfschanz. Hitler's Wolf's Lair, Rassenburg, East Prussia. The pines sweat resin in the noon heat, and the airfield trembles as a transport's engines throttle down. Dust veils the silhouettes of two men in field gray stepping from the fuselage. Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg, tunic impeccably pressed, black eye patch cutting a hard line across his face, and his adjutant, Lieutenant Werner von Haeften, jaw set and eyes flicking to every sentry's rifle like a metronome of nerves. You can hear everything here. Gravel under boot, mosquitoes whining, the faint clatter of typewriters from a nearby barack, where telephones never stop ringing, and below it all, a steady hum, generators feeding the map rooms where a nation's delusions are penciled into existence. Stauffenberg carries a brown leather briefcase. It seems ordinary, scuffed at the corners, clasp polished bright from habit. Inside are 2 blocks of British plastic explosive wrapped in tan paper, the kind that sticks like putty to steel or oak. In a small cellophane sleeve, 2 pencil detonators, slim, spring-loaded tubes, brittle glass amps of acid inside, coiled wires waiting to slip and release, to count down silently toward a tiny crushing of copper and then thunder. General Alfred Jodel's staff car lurks at the perimeter, idling like a patient carnivore. But it's Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel who meets them with a bear's handshake, the big man's breath warm with cigarettes. "Good to see you, Herr Oberst," Keitel says, leading them along a plank path through the trees, past coils of barbed wire glittering like dewstrung spiderwebs. The Führer wants a shorter Lagebesprechung today. Weather reports for the East. Army Group Center. You understand. I understand, Stauffenberg says. He looks at the sky, a hard enamel blue edged with thunderclouds far off. His left hand, 2 fingers missing, twitches against the briefcase handle. His right hand is gone entirely, the empty cuff pinned neatly. He has learned to button, to sign, to salute with what remains. Today he will arm a detonator with teeth. They pass through checkpoints. Steel helmets, pass guards, black eagles stamped across paper the color of old bones. Von Haeften keeps half a step behind, the choreography of a bodyguard, eyes on the trunks, the roof lines, the elbows of passing officers. Somewhere a dog barks, a sound like a door kicked open and shut, and then the forest closes again. In the anteroom of the Lodgebarack, map hut, the air is sour with sweat and damp wood. A stenographer flips carbon paper. Stauffenberg asks, casually, to change his shirt. He apologizes, travel dust, the heat, and a sergeant points him toward a side office. Von Haeften follows, closes the door, and the noise of the war dims to a low thrum. Time, Von Haeften whispers. Stauffenberg sets the briefcase on a spare desk. He opens it and removes 1 block of explosive, its waxed wrapping stiff. He works quickly, methodically, like a pianist drilling a difficult passage by memory. Teeth grip the soft copper collar of a pencil detonator. He bites down hard. Inside the tube, acid gnaws a wire strand by strand. 5-10 minutes, depending on the room's warmth. He knows the feel. The slight give, the click no one else hears. He pushes the armed detonator into the putty, kneads the plastique with the heel of his mutilated hand, fixes it flat. Second charge, Von Haeften says, already tearing the paper from the twin block, fingers shaking. There isn't time. A runner appears at the doorway, cap askew, breath hot. Herr Oberst. The Führer is ready. The runner's eyes flick to the open briefcase, to the shirt sleeve, to nothing. He doesn't see. He steps back. Stauffenberg hesitates the length of a heartbeat. 2 charges would anchor death to the floor. 1 will have to do. He tucks the armed bomb into the briefcase, closes it gently as if there's a sleeping child inside. Von Haeften slides the unarmed second block back in among papers and a notebook, a decoy with no voice. In the corridor, they move faster. The map hut's door opens and the heat slaps them. The briefing room is long, narrow, and bright with summer, windows cracked for air since the bunker has grown stifling in July. An oval oak table dominates the space, thick as a tree trunk turned on its side. On the far edge of that table stands Adolf Hitler, smaller than legend, mustache clipped like a dark slash of ink. His left hand fiddles with his belt buckle. His right traces a line on a map spread over the oak. Around him, Colonel Heinz Brandt, stooping to peer at an arrow that marches toward Minsk, General Husinger with a ruler like a conductor's baton, and officers in varied feldgrau, badges glinting in the hard, paneled light. Keitel presents Stauffenberg, for the Reserve Army's mobilization plan, and a dozen heads turn. Eyes register the eye patch, the empty sleeve, the aristocrat's posture blurred by battlefield ruin. Hitler nods, a small tilt, and returns to the map. His voice is quiet, thin. Army Group Vistula is to be reinforced from Silesia. The English will bomb again tonight. We must be ready. Stauffenberg eases toward the table. The briefcase feels heavy now, a private planet with its own gravitational pull. He slides into a gap near Brandt, sets the case carefully against the thick oak leg just to the right of where Hitler leans. The scent of pine resin and sweat hangs like varnish over the men. Pencils scratch. A fly lands on the map near Smolensk and then lifts away. He needs to leave the room before the spring inside the pencil detonator finishes its journey, before acid frees the steel tongue. He needs a telephone, an excuse, a breath. He clears his throat. My Führer, if I may, Berlin is awaiting confirmation of a call. With your permission, a moment outside. Hitler nods again, distracted by moot arrows. Of course. Stauffenberg steps back. The briefcase remains, a leather rectangle pressed against oak, almost touching Hitler's boot. A single inch of difference here is the width of a different century. Von Haeften waits at the threshold. Stauffenberg catches his eye, and a look passes, a whole plan compressed to a pinprick of time. They walk into the corridor, heels brisk on boards. The door closes behind them with a dull wooden click, and inside the room, voices fall, rise, someone cough. The forest drones. The detonator counts. The sound of splintering wood. Outside, the air is sharp with pine and the tang of engine oil. Stauffenberg and von Haeften move with controlled haste toward the staff car waiting at the edge of the compound. The sentries barely look up. Just another pair of officers leaving another briefing in another war that refuses to end. The seconds drag like molasses. Each footstep is a hammerbeat in Stauffenberg's skull. He glances at his watch, 12 minutes past noon. The acid is eating through the wire. The spring will slip any moment now. Driver, Stauffenberg orders, his voice steady, prepare to leave immediately. He turns toward the guard post at the gate, where the telephone hut stands. I must report to General from. He needs to keep up the illusion, to be just another bureaucrat in field gray. Von Haeften follows, every nerve alight. They step into the hut, the heat trapped like breath in a coffin. The clock on the wall ticks faintly above the crackle of static on the field line. Stauffenberg grips the receiver with his maimed hand, pretending to dial. His mind is counting, not numbers, but heartbeats. 6 minutes. 5. Back at the map hut, Colonel Brandt shifts his stance to get a clearer view of the map. He nudges the briefcase with his boot, annoyed by its placement. Without thinking, he slides it around the thick oak leg, a few inches away, placing the solid wood beam directly between Hitler and the explosive charge. That simple, thoughtless gesture will shape the next half-century. For minutes, Stauffenberg pretends to wait for the line to connect, murmuring to no one. Outside, von Haeften wipes sweat from his brow and looks toward the wooden hut, then back to the trees beyond the wire. A single fly circles the roof eaves, landing, lifting again. 3 minutes. The heat thickens. Corporal walks by, nods. Stauffenberg nods back. His heart is a piston hammering in his ribs. We should go, von Haeften whispers. 2 minutes. Stauffenberg sets the receiver down. Now. They step out, walking briskly, not running. Running would draw eyes. The gravel crunches underfoot. The air seems thinner now, each breath a ragged cut. They're almost to the car when a flock of crows bursts from the tree-line, a black shiver against the sky. Then it happens. A roar tears the forest open. The ground convulses. A pillar of fire and splinters erupts from the map hut. The shock wave slams outward, flattening pine branches, shattering windows. The air turns white with smoke and dust. For a heartbeat, the world is nothing but noise. Von Haeften flinches, instinctively covering his head. Stauffenberg's face stays locked, pale, a tremor of disbelief running through him. He knows that sound, the concussive crack of a detonation meant to kill men. He whispers, half to himself, "It's done." They climb into the car. "Drive!" Stauffenberg shouts. The driver, startled, slams the gear and lurches forward down the dirt track. Guards are already running toward the smoke column, shouting orders. No one stops the colonel's car. The man just left the Führer's meeting, after all. As they pass the checkpoint, the boom's echo still rolls through the pines. Behind them, the wolf's lair is chaos, screams, dust, sirens, shouts for stretchers. Stauffenberg looks once more over his shoulder. Flames lick through the hut's torn roof. Planks lie twisted like paper. "He's dead," he murmurs. He can almost see it. Hitler's body torn apart, the Reich without its tyrant, Germany free to make peace before the Soviets drown it in blood. For the first time in months, he lets himself breathe. Von Haeften presses his hand to his temple, eyes glassy with shock. It worked. It finally. Stauffenberg nods, almost smiling. "Yes, we've done it." The car speeds down the narrow forest road toward the airfield. The engine growls, gears grinding. Behind them, the black plume rises higher, a twisted flag against the noonday sky. Neither man knows that in the wreckage of the briefing hut, Adolf Hitler stands alive. His uniform torn, legs bleeding, hair singed, but breathing. The heavy oak table leg absorbed the blast like a shield. 4 officers are dead. Many more are wounded. The Führer is furious, and unbroken. As the plane lifts off for Berlin, carrying Stauffenberg and his briefcase -1 charge, the radio operators at Wolfschanz already begin to send messages. The hunt will begin before he lands. The coup that never was. The engines throb in rhythm with the colonel's pulse. From the narrow window of the Heinkel He 111, the forests of East Prussia roll beneath like a dark green sea. Stauffenberg sits rigid in his seat, cap pulled low, his one hand clenched on his knee. The smell of oil and cordite still clings to his uniform, a faint ghost of what he's left behind. Across from him, Von Haeften exhales a trembling laugh. "It's over, Claus. It must be. Nothing could survive that." Stauffenberg nods, but the words feel fragile. Still, the arithmetic of the explosion, the size, the charge, the confined space, should have made survival impossible. "Hitler is dead," he says, as though saying it aloud will make it true. "And now Germany can be free." Below them, the clouds part, revealing the ribbon of the Vistula River gleaming in the sun. To the west lies Berlin, and the future they've gambled everything on. At the Bendler Block, the reserve army headquarters in Berlin, the air is thick with heat and the smell of stale paper. General Friedrich Albrecht glances at the clock for the 20th time. Each minute that passes without confirmation from Rassenberg feels like a blade pressed against his neck. The plan, Operation Valkyrie, is ready. Drafted as a contingency for internal unrest, it will now be turned against the very regime it was meant to protect. With Hitler dead, the reserve army will seize control, arrest the SS, and restore law under a provisional government. But without proof of the Führer's death, no one will move. Colonel Albrecht Merz von Kornheim paces the map room, boots squealing on the tile. "We must act now," he urges. "The window closes with every moment." Albrecht shakes his head. "If we act too soon and he lives." He doesn't finish the thought. They all know what that would mean. A phone rings, shrill and sudden. A lieutenant snatches it up, listens, then turns to the others, eyes wide. Colonel von Stauffenberg's aircraft has landed at Rengsdorf. The room exhales as one. Moments later, the doors burst open. Stauffenberg strides in, face pale but burning with conviction. "Gentlemen," he announces, "the Führer is dead. I saw the hut explode myself." The room comes alive. Orders fly. Officers rush to telephones. Telex operators hammer at their machines, dispatching coded instructions across the Reich. Valkyrie is in effect. In garrisons across Germany and occupied Europe, the machinery of rebellion grinds to life. Commanders in Paris, Vienna, Prague receive the orders. The SS has attempted a coup. The Führer is dead. The army must restore control. Soldiers march into the street. Communications centers are seized. SS officers are disarmed, arrested, bewildered. For a brief, trembling hour, the Nazi regime begins to crack. But at the Wolf's Lair, the crack seals itself. In the smoking wreckage of the map hut, a medic wraps gauze around Hitler's shredded trousers. His eardrums are ruptured, his right arm burned, but he is very much alive. His eyes blaze, not with fear, but with a kind of divine fury. "Stauffenberg," he spits, the name hissing through his teeth. "The traitor!" Goebbels and Himmler arrive within minute. Telephones shriek. The propaganda minister is already dictating orders. Announce the Führer's survival. Every station, every channel. The people must know immediately. Within an hour, the radio waves crackle to life. An assassination attempt against the Führer has failed. He is alive and uninjured. The words travel faster than the coup itself. In Berlin, Albrecht's adjutant bursts into the map room, face ashen. "Sir," radio reports, "Hitler lives." The noise of the room collapses into silence. Every eye turns to Stauffenberg. "That's impossible," he says, voice low, jaw tight. "Propaganda. Lies. They're bluffing." But even as he speaks, the telephones begin to ring again, desperate, panicked. Field commanders demanding answers. Some refuse to act without proof. Others rescind their orders, sensing the shifting tide. And then the call comes from Joseph Goebbels's office. Major Otto Ernst Riemer, commander of the Berlin Guard Battalion, is listening as the propaganda minister hands him the receiver. "Herr Major," Goebbels says, his voice honeyed and calm, "the Führer wishes to speak with you." There's a pause. Then Hitler's voice crackles over the line, hoarse, unmistakable. "Riemer, the traitors are in the Bendler block. Crush them." At the Bendler block, the light fades into dusk. The coup's energy drains like blood from an open wound. Stauffenberg still believes, pacing, shouting for the teleprinters to keep sending orders. "We must continue. The Reich is ours if we just." Outside, truck engines rumble. The guard battalion surrounds the building. Boots stamp on the cobblestones. Inside, the conspirators hear the metallic clatter of rifles being loaded. Von Haften looks to his friend. "It's over." "No," Stauffenberg insists, voice cracking. "Not yet. We came this far." But even he can see the truth in the darkening glass of the windows. Their reflection looks like ghosts already. Night of the traitors. The Bendler block is a fortress of echoes. The heavy oak doors thud as they close, corridors flickering under yellow lamps, the smell of sweat and paper thick in the stale air. It's past 10 p.m., and the coup has dissolved into confusion. Orders countermanded. Teletypes jammed. Phones ringing unanswered. In the courtyard below, the sound of boots draws closer. Major Riemer's men, rifles ready, bayonets fixed. They've come to retake the headquarters in the Führer's name. Inside, General From, head of the reserve army, the man whose authority they needed, has returned, livid and terrified. His gray hair gleams under the lamps as he storms into the operations room. "You fools," he hisses. "You thought you could overthrow the Führer?" Albrecht tries to reason with him. "From, listen to me. Hitler's alive, yes, but only because of chance. You saw what he's done to Germany. The war is lost." From cuts him off, eyes darting toward the door where Riemer's men are gathering. "You've doomed us all. I'll not hang with you." He grabs the telephone and shouts for Riemer to enter. The door bursts open and soldiers flood in, weapons raised. The coup's final breath leaves the room in silence. Arrest them, from orders. All of them. Stauffenberg doesn't flinch. He stands at the center of the chaos, eye patch shadowing half his face, his mutilated hand clenched against his chest. The room spins with shouted names and accusations, but he remains still, calm, like a man who has already stepped out of time. Von Haeften moves to his side, defiant. Colonel von Stauffenberg acted for Germany, he says. You should thank him, not arrest him. The soldiers don't reply. Their eyes are wide with a mix of fear and awe. The myth of Hitler's invincibility has been restored tonight, and these men can feel it closing around them like armor. From tries to wash the blood from his hands before it's even spilled. There will be a court-martial, he mutters. Immediate. You understand. Albrecht and Mertz von Kornheim exchange glances. They know what that means. No trial. No defense. Just a firing squad. The courtyard is cold, the stones damp with summer dew. A single truck's headlights illuminate the wall. The clock reads just past midnight, July 21, 1944. Stauffenberg walks upright between two guards, coat draped over his shoulders, step unbroken. Von Haeften follows, whispering prayers under his breath. Albrecht and Kornheim are already waiting, their faces pale in the glare. From steps forward, clipboard trembling in his hands. He reads the verdict quickly, voice flat. Colonel Claus Schenk Graf von Stauffenberg. Colonel Albrecht Mertz von Kornheim. General Friedrich Albrecht. Lieutenant Werner von Haeften. Convicted of high treason. Sentence: death by firing squad. Stauffenberg nods once. No plea. No apology. The soldiers raise their rifles. The metal glints under the lamps. Von Haeften suddenly steps in front of Stauffenberg, chest out, arms spread wide. Shoot me first, he demands. He must see Germany free. The officer in charge hesitates, then nods. A single volley cracks. Von Haeften falls backward, his body striking the stone with a hollow thud. Stauffenberg stands alone now, blood flecking his boots. He lifts his chin, facing the rifles. Long live Holy Germany, he shouts. The shots come almost as he finishes the words. The echo rolls through the courtyard, bounces off the walls, and fades into the Berlin night. By morning, the Bendler block is sealed. The Gestapo arrive before dawn, their black cars slick with rain. They drag away the bodies, drag away the papers, drag away the names of everyone who ever whispered Valkyrie. The news spreads outward, to Paris, to Vienna, to Munich. Hundreds will hang in the weeks that follow, piano wire cutting through flesh in the flickering light of Plötzensee prison. Hitler, furious but alive, speaks to the nation. His arm is bandaged, his hand trembles, but his voice is steady. Providence has preserved me, he declares, to finish the mission destiny has given me. And so the killing continues, 10 more months of it until the Reich burns. But history remembers something else too. Not the oak table that shielded a tyrant, nor the radio lies that saved him, but the man who tried to stop him from within. Claus von Stauffenberg's bomb missed its mark by inches. Yet in that moment, he became the face of Germany's conscience, a man who saw beyond orders, beyond oath, beyond fear, and chose moral courage over survival. In the final hours of a collapsing empire, he gave the world a glimpse of another Germany, one that might have been. Yendi.